So Annick, you ready? I'll introduce you while you're getting your stuff put up there. How's that? Okay. Annick Berard is an independent art critic, curator, director, curator of Leonardo Olatz, which is how I've actually known her for many years, at least through a screen and on the email. So great to have you here. She's also an event organizer in the field of art and techno sciences and has written many articles and contributes to French contemporary art magazine Art Press. And she's also organized many symposia, conferences, workshops, including recently the Traveling Plant Project, and ran the Roots and Seeds Biodiversity Crisis and Plant Resistant Projects for Leonardo Olatz. And Olatz is the sort of the French side of Leonardo, for those of you who don't know. Which ended in 2002. And I think that's about it right now.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Where is it? Can't find it, of course. Here. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's always stressful for me to share my screen. So first of all, good day, everybody. Good night or good evening for the people that are in the same time zone as myself. First of all, I would like to really thank Tammy and Piero for having invented the laser meetings. And I'm super happy to be here tonight because actually it's the first time that I'm really seeing them. And e-meeting them. So I hope that one day we will be doing it for real somewhere. So I have changed a little bit the title of my presentation from the very general art and science to the maybe obscure or fuzzy out of a bubble. But hopefully the title will become clear as I speak. First of all, I would like to start by sharing an experience I had of a project recently, which I consider to be brilliant and in which I have not at all been involved, but zero involvement, just being an audience. And this is the exhibition currently at the Philharmonie in Paris, and it's called Musique Animale. And this exhibition shows the influence of animal voices upon art in general, including painting and so on, and music, but also the biodiversity crisis and the extinction of a sound patrimony with the disappearance of birds, insects, right, Krista, and other animals, and very much in today biodiversity COP15 in Montreal. So here, of course, these are slides of things that are also they are images of things that are also making sound. Here is Eric I don't know how you pronounce his name, Nussberger, Le Cerf, which is the bones of the animal that he played as musical instruments during a performance. This is Art Orienté Objet, the French duo who developed a lot of bio artworks. And here is the names of animals that are becoming extinct, written in languages in human languages that themselves are becoming extinct. And there is this thing which is wiping out throughout the exhibition the names that are written. Here is it was a wonderful installation with extract from the film Ocean, with musics that have been created by musicians related to the ocean and the whales. And the one I listened to was the one by John Cage. And this was done also, the scientific advisor as Olivier Adam. And Olivier Adam is a specialist of whales songs. And actually, I had the great honor to have him during one of my laser in Paris with a sound artist, Aline Penito. And at that time, also Victoria Vesna was part of the laser. And this is Fred of a Spider by Thomas Araceno, with the sonification of the movement of the Fred. And in the background, you hear the bird songs from another installation. So why do I think this is interesting and important? Because through various artifacts, art, music, and others, current or past object embodies and share scientific knowledge from bioacoustics to history, to musicology, and much more in a seamless way. And what I thought was absolutely fabulous with this exhibition is that it came out, it went out of its own bubble to provide both a learning, an emotional, a pleasurable, and an aesthetics experience, and also reaching and integrating some art science elements and components. So I'm going to talk about some of my projects. But before, I would like to make two preliminary remarks about out of a bubble and art science. So generally speaking, I don't think that we really can totally go out of our bubble. We are more than often talking to ourselves, but we can try. And maybe that we can achieve, if not going out of our bubble, is enlarge this bubble and bring new people in our sphere. At least I think we should be super careful not to create another ghetto, an art science ghetto, as, and maybe I'm speaking only for France, but as we have somehow done for digital art, which is confined to certain circuits and spheres and do not mix with mainstream art or very rarely or other element. So Out of a Bubble was actually the cover title of a program for my projects with Leonardo Olatz. So as Tammy mentioned, Leonardo Olatz is the French Franco-European organization affiliated to Leonardo Izast. And so it was the title for the projects from 2018, 2019 to 22-23 was a bit extended because of COVID, of course, like for everybody else. And my second remark is about art science. What the artworks are about is important, of course, whether they deal with cutting-edge science or critical and burning issues. However, I'm as much, if no more, interested by the how it is conveyed. In other words, how the translation, the interpretation, or to use a more current metaphor, the horizontal transfer from the science is conveyed, embodied by the artists into the artworks and by the curators and producers in their projects and exhibition. So in other words, I still believe in aesthetics and artworks. So I'm too long. The first project that I want to present is Roots and Seeds 21, which actually was exhibited at Ars Electronica this year. So the subtitle is Biodiversity Crisis and Plant Resistance. And during this project with a partner, co-artist Ars Electronica and the University of Barcelona, we organized a workshop with artists, scientists, cultural players, of cartography of gardens. And in my case, it was the garden of a Malina house in the suburb of Paris. So we gave our participants those notebooks where they could draw things, put pictures, select plants, write papers, and so on and so forth. And as a curator editor, it was closed work. In my case, it was a closed workshop with no audience, only the artists and scientists participating. So as a curator editor, the question was, how do I bring to an audience that did not attend our workshop something that is both interesting, nurturing, and pleasurable? So go beyond the pictures of a participant having fun in a place that you have not attending, doing things that you have no idea what it is. So I took all the content of those notebooks and I regrouped them thematically in 8 stories describing the garden. So to speak, in 8 cartography, 8 representations of a garden as 8 layers. So altogether, they make a picture of a garden. So the chosen format, the format that I chose for this was, on the one hand, a very old technique of pop-up. And where's the pop-up? The pop-up is here, and foldable or folding publication, except it was a little bit more complicated than it sounds and to make. And it has, as you can see here, this QR code with online extension. And I took the same content and did the same online. So this is a screen capture of the online version where you have, this is linked to the podcast, to a podcast. And this is you see here, you have the book. Here you have the cover of the online story. Another one here, same here. So there is a correspondence, except that I had no pop-up online, but those texts are hyperlinked, which I can't do on a paper system. So this was presented in Lens. So this is the same building in which Bill was in Ars Electronica Festival. So this here you had the booklets that people could check. And here is a work by Anaïs Tonda, a French artist who participated in my workshop in Paris. And this is called Living Herbarium. Here you have when she was doing it in the Marina garden. And here is the result, and it's cyanotype, of course. So instead of cutting the plants to make an herbarium, she left them living in the garden, but she took their traces. Maybe I'm going to skip that because I need to move to the other project. So basically, I created a set of cards as a basis for the podcast that we did. And this can be used also for discussions with anybody. I mean, whatever. So the second project is the new one, and that's called Global Periphery, Contemporary Imaginaries of Outer Space, Multiple Voices. And it's a symposium that took place this September in Paris, and is part of a new European Union project in which Leonardo Olatz is involved, and it's called More Than Planet. And the very content of this Global Periphery Symposium is exactly dealing with the out of a bubble approach. That is out of the main space sector approaches and discourses, out of a US Western vision of space and space art and culture, And it is important to know that the symposium took place at the same time at the end of the International Astronautical Congress that took place in Paris this September. And that is the most important congress in the world on outer space, with all the corporations, all the space agencies, you name it. So this was, and it's a kind of voice that is voiced there. And Global Periphery was really to enlarge the bubble and to reach to other kind of voices. And it was also trying to go out of a traditional symposium format. And for this, there is also another set of cards. It's my fourth card deck. I love cards at the moment. And those cards were used as in Roots and Seeds as a basis for podcast, but they were also used as triggers for the imaginary future performance by Markus Neustetter and his team. And here is the setup in Paris, where you have Markus Neustetter and Fatou Cissé on stage and on screen. Fatou is both on stage physically and on screen via Zoom. And via Zoom, we had 6 South African artists in different locations in South Africa that are part of a team of artists that Markus Neustetter is working with, and Markus was VJing them. So it was both an online and on-site performance. And what is important is that this performance took place in 2 parts, one at the beginning of the symposium, one at the end of the symposium, and it was presented as another presentation, exactly on the same level and on the same format with the same amount of time as the other presenters delivering their talks and their Q&A. And for the trick, this piece of wood here comes from the Manina Garden and has been brought back to the Manina Garden. In my last and conclusive part, I would like to go back to art science in general and laser. And art science is kind of a very tricky denomination. None of the terms qualify the other. It's a multifaceted nebula that does not define a genre, an aesthetics, a medium or a form, a single conceptual or ideological approach. So art science is at the fringe, this undecided zone of permeability between porous metaphors, the metaphors produced by the scientist and the one produced by the artist. And here is, but I'm running out of time. So here, and I want absolutely to show you my last slide. Here are a few pictures of a laser that I organized. And in my lasers, what I try to do is really to show this diversity of practice or practices. And I want to conclude, where is it? Here. I want to conclude with this, which is also a project that is very dear to my heart, very emotional for me, and in which I have absolutely zero thing to do. I've done absolutely nothing in that project. And this project, last night for Europe, Ariane 5, the last Ariane 5, they are now switching to the Ariane 6. So this is the last Ariane 5 rocket, put into orbit 3 satellites. One of them is a geostationary satellite, which is situated over Africa to monitor climate information, to help the entire African continent on its climate and meteorological data. And it's the first time that they have such a satellite. And this is an artwork that is a collaboration. So EUMETSAT is a company that is the launcher of this satellite. And this is an artwork by three African artists, two from the Democratic Republic of Congo. One is Michel Ekeba from Congo Astronaut. The other one is Géraldine, it's a woman, Tobé, also from Republic of Congo. And the other one is Jean-David Nkot, sorry, from Cameroon. And they were selecting after a call for participation. They were asked to work together. They created this artwork together, which has been put on the nose cone of the Ariane 5. And for me, this is, oh, I forgot one important element. This artwork is downloadable free of charge. It's open source from the internet. And this is a wonderful example of collaboration, a wonderful example of art, science, and technology, and human at the best. So I will leave it here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annick. Can I ask a question?
Yep.
So first of all, thank you, Annick, for being a curator. I'm not a curator, so I can see the difference when you approach art and science. You guide the artist in their research, something that unfortunately I cannot do. Unfortunately, I don't have that background. But my question is about one direction of the art-science interaction that is usually neglected. When we talk art and science, it comes natural to think, what can art do with science? It's less natural to think what science can do with art. And at the beginning, you talked about the horizontal transfer from science to art. Can you say a few words about the horizontal transfer from art to science, the opposite direction?
Yes. I think, first of all, I think there is not a necessity of utility between art and science in either way, in art toward science or science toward art. If we think what can one bring, we go into justifications and some kind of dead end. This said, I also think that you don't necessarily need collaborations between artists and scientists to create art science works. This is also something which I think is important. Because already in one of my lasers, some of the artists have the knowledge of the scientific knowledge to produce their artworks. We don't need to collaborate. Also, there is a lot online that a lot of knowledge, scientific knowledge online that they can access. And also there is all the DIY movement. So what can science get out of this is methodologies, because I think that the artists develop methodologies that the scientists don't use, and it can be useful. It can be both practical methodologies and conceptual methodologies as well. And there is just also this side, in French, pas de côté, side step. That suddenly and it works for everybody, you are focused on your work. You're so much focused on your work that you don't see the obvious. And somebody comes and say, oh, what is this red dot here? You hadn't even seen the red dot, or ask you again a question that you think you have solved, I don't know, 20 years ago. And by re-explaining, it's the eureka moment. It's how the eureka moment can come up with also. And I have examples of artists with scientists if you want, but there is also how to do it with less money and quicker. COVID was an incredible example for that. When the scientists and the industry, I'm not talking about vaccine here. I'm talking, for instance, with respiratory machines. And the industry could not follow up with too many people in hospital. And the DIY people just came and took things and put together respiratory machines. So with zero money, same for PCR. I mean, in the bioart field, the DIY community came up with PCR machines that were $100 when the PCR machines by labs and scientists were, I don't know how many thousands dollars. And for some scientists and also that do not necessarily have access to those machines, or in countries where we do not necessarily have access with those machines, it's super exciting because you can teach students and you can develop research. So this came from the artist. Sorry, I was a bit long.
No, it's good.
Are there other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Annick, for a nice presentation. I also liked a lot the roots and seed presentation that you made at Ars Electronica, and I was wondering, why did you decide to make those cards and go back to like from the digital to the analog haptical quality of the cards? Was this something done on purpose, and if so, why?
The cards, well, actually, it's very interesting because the cards came from a previous project where I had to do podcasts, and I had 20 people, and I thought, my God, if I do an interview with each of them, it's never going to end. I don't have the time, and I don't have the time to edit 20 podcasts. So I went for questions, thinking, okay, they will pick questions and they will answer only 2 or 3 questions. And I thought, okay, let's write the questions on a piece of paper, put it in a hat, and they will take it. And then I thought, we can make a card game. It's going to be much nicer, and people will like to keep it. And this card game, I mean, this deck of, it's not a game, this deck of cards then can become an icebreaker for with an audience, a way to open a discussion, a global discussion. And I did one, and it turned out to be super successful. So I repeated it, just change the questions and the design.
Mm-hmm. And they had a very beautiful design. I think you told me that there's a designer you're working with,
yes,
to make those designs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's gorgeous. So it was both as an accident and then improved.
Mm-hmm.
And then on purpose.
Thank you, Annick.
Thank you.
The foldable and pop-up publication for Roots and Seeds was absolutely on purpose and design and thought through exactly this way.
I like that part a lot also, because I feel like as a scientist, you know, we go from paper to the abstract, right? Like we think about things on paper, at least as a chemist I do, and then and then it goes into some abstract world in the lab. And I think like I like this inversion of going from this abstract digital space into the analog. I like that a lot. I think it's like this reversal of the process. That's very beautiful.
Thank you.